This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guy Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Had a really good show yesterday. The OG, the man himself, Mark Jeffries, jumped on BTL and had a really good conversation. Talked with him a little bit about the ridiculous trip to Lake Bacharach down in Mexico. A little bit about how he is trying to he's not trying to, he's like reinventing the world of collegiate bowling. I feel like in order to do that 100% has to be a passion project. And then I went on a little bit of rant at the end of the show. Our guest today has been there and done that. He's one of the four guys who has been on the Elite Series continuously since its inception in 2006. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. I'd already reached out to Mr. Bill Lowen on my way back from Mexico. I tried to get him on. I tried to get him on a couple months ago. I can't remember what it was. Called him like last minute. He's like on his way to like a family dentist appointment or something like that. But I wanted to get him on to talk about some of the early years on the Elite Series. And then I've made some interesting observations. Because Bill announced he's fishing the NPFL this year in 2026, as well as the 20th season of the Bassmaster Elite Series in 2026. I want to get his take on some stuff. So we'll bring him in. He looks like he's about ready to go on a safari for some wild game species there. What's up, Mr. Lowen?
How are you, bud?
Is that your house? Like that's a very artistic wall hangings behind you there.
Well, normally there's 3 fishing pictures up there, but when Christmas comes around, Nevaeh gets crazy and decorates everything. I think you can see there's a Santa Claus.
No,
back
that's Santa.
there.
He's checking his list. That's him seeing who's making sure he's got the 101 right guys on the Elite Series and the 130 guys on the MPFL back there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting wall back there.
Are you a Christmas lights guy? Like if you drive past the Lowen's house, is it festive?
No, my wife don't let me put any Christmas lights up.
Wait, whoa, what?
Hey, if it was up to Jennifer, the whole house, the trees, the boats, everything would have Christmas lights on them.
Well, why doesn't it?
Well, I don't really know. Probably because we don't ever have any time.
Here's my thought on it. I have noticed there are not many professional anglers who are like, can you name one professional angler who's like, that guy does Christmas lights?
I wouldn't. I can't name one, but if I could think one, it would probably be Steve Kennedy.
Oh, I could see that. Steve Kennedy would totally have a circuit board with he'd have one of those deals where the music is timed with the lights.
Exactly.
And
He's
it would
like
be
Clark Griswold, you know?
Absolutely 100%. But here's my theory on that is you're always in got to get ready for the first tournament of the year mode. So like 3 days to plan and install Christmas lights is never an option. And because of the chosen profession, it's not like a lot of professional fishermen are like, oh yeah, we'll just pay 10 grand to have the freaking light company come and install all of them. So I can't remember, like, correct me if I'm wrong in the instant feedback in the comments here. Are there any fishing guys who are like Christmas light spectacular guys? Because we all know that one person in our life who's like, okay, that guy's going to start planning in September for what comes up on December 1st. But I can't name anybody.
Yeah. You know, and it's cold here. We got 6 inches of snow on the ground. And, you know, on the subject, you remember, you know, Derek Hudnall used to fish with us.
Yeah.
I believe he has a Christmas installation company that they do.
Really?
Know? Yeah.
And remember Paul Elias, Christmas tree farm.
Right.
I guess there is. So anyway, I appreciate you jumping on BTL this morning. It was shocking yesterday when I was talking, and I don't think we've left anyone out. John Cruz, Mark Menendez, Steve Kennedy, and you, the only four that are currently on the Elite Series who have been there since the 2006 inaugural season. Am I?
You might be correct.
Because Hackney, Iconelli, those guys, I mean, they had a hiatus there.
Right, exactly.
Gerald Swindle, a hiatus and came back. So it's hard to believe when you look back at that Lake Amistad the first year, you know, that Godzilla ain't got nothing on me. At Darnell, you go through like the major. I mean, you've been through a lot, and it's hard to believe. I started covering this in 2007, 2008. It's hard to believe that it's been 20 years of the Elite Series already. Have you realized that or thought about that?
You know, I have a lot, you know, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that I may be the oldest angler in the Bassmaster Classic this year. And I just turned 51 in December, or the 3rd of December. So to think about it like that really makes me feel kind of old, you know?
The oldest angler in the field. Well, let's go through it. Chris, Trey, Koya, Jay. Well, you could be all their dads except for Chris. Jay, Will, no, it's a good thing. Taki, Tyler, Patrick. Oh my gosh.
Like I said, I've heard that. I don't know if it's true or not because I hadn't looked.
I'm looking right now. Cody, how old is Caleb Kupal's got to be at his late 30s, early 40s. Or
I got
early
crankbaits
30s.
older than he is.
Early 30s? I don't know. It's hard to gauge that Wisconsin neck of the woods. You don't know whether they're like late 20s or early 50s when they get up in that. I think like the alcohol like preserves.
Yeah, alcohol and cheese preserves your body.
makes you simultaneously look the same age. I don't think. Yeah, you got Pash Schlopper. Lou. You got Livesey. I know he's. I think you're easily the oldest in the field, Bill. Like maybe
Thanks,
by like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that means I should get a front parking spot at the dock so I don't have to walk.
You definitely need one of those things that hangs around the. That's wild though, isn't it? Like, have you felt the change over the last 3 or 4 years as far as the trending down in age? You know Ken Duke. I know Ken Duke. Everybody knows Ken Duke, the stats guy who used to say, well, the average age of an Elite Series angler is 42 years old and their prime is 43 to 50 and blah, blah, blah. And now you look at it and I think those stats are skewed. Have you felt that over the past 2 decades out there? Because you were still 30 when you joined the Elite Series, but at the time you were one of the younger ones on tour.
Yeah, I was when I started. I think I was 30. I was. And, when I started, all my heroes were there. You know what I mean? Rick Clunn and Denny Brower and things like that. And we've seen them guys all retire, go to the wayside. And like you said, the average age for the Elite Series now, and you just can contribute that to high school and college fishing, which didn't exist really when I started. Or was at least thinking about becoming a professional angler. So now the average angler is coming out much younger, as we've seen over the last couple years, because of high school and college. So had we not had that option at high school and college, I think we would still see the average age of that angler be a little older.
You still having fun 20 years in?
There was a point there. The last few years, and we've talked about this, have been my worst years in my career. Especially last year where I finished 85th in the points. That was the first time in 20 years that I'd ever been below the cut line. So for the way the elites work, for every 5 years you get your worst drop year, and I got 3 or 4 drop years. So I had to use one of my drop years, which I didn't like to do that. But I just wasn't. I guess the last 3 or 4 years, I don't want to say I wasn't having fun, but I kind of got lost. And what I mean by that is I got lost with forward facing sonar and fishing my style and things like that. And I was kind of hung up between, I didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I feel like you can't do both. You got to either fish your style or commit to forward facing sonar. And I just, honestly, I just got lost. And this year, I finally told myself that you better go back to being what you were known for, being consistent, cashing checks, making classics, um, and letting blue trophies happen on their own. And that's what I did this year. Went back to having fun, staying out of the drama, just trying to get back to my love for the sport. Um, and we had fun this year. And, I fished the elites and I fished the NPFL. The NPFL was, kind of a breath of fresh air for the fact that you just put the boat in the water and went fishing. And to be fishing the elites and fishing the NPFL, it made it fun again. It was a long, strenuous year. I think we left home in February. Didn't get home for any amount of time till September. I think in that span we were only home like 10 days.
Jeez.
So it was a very grueling year, and fortunately, I'm blessed that the family travels all over the country with me, so it makes it a lot easier. But with that being said, it was a fun season. I mean, and look, it's always fun when you're catching them. It's not fun when you're not catching them. And I, like I said, had fun. Made the Bassmaster Classic. Made the MPFL Championship in both. I think I might have finished 12th in both series for points, but it was just a fun year.
That's strong. Yeah, you ripped off 7 consecutive top 50 finishes on the Elite Series, and then obviously kicked it off with the win in the very first event on the St. Johns River. You had your first win, was it 2021 on Pickwick?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So it's interesting. Your 2 wins, like you were in that category of the best guys on tour who had never won. You now have 2 blue trophies, bookends on the mantle there. Both of those came in the scope era. On fisheries, the Pickwick was a unique situation there. I think with the water level, how that ended up happening. Yep. But the St. John's, I think a lot of guys were thinking that was going to be a scope fest. And with most of the guys with it on it is when you've gotten your 2 victories. But then you did mention the consistency. You also hadn't been in a classic in a number of years since the scope era. Do you think that you mentioned that consistency is because of the scope, but do you also think that it has helped you? Are you one of the guys who you think has kind of figured out, like you mentioned, that sweet spot of, are you seeing more water to yourself the last couple of years, particularly last year? Like, were you able to say, oh, I can navigate in this new world doing what I do because instead of 15 guys on this juice stretch, I'm the only one?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. But I think, like I said, what has helped me, especially this year, is that I've learned how to make forward-facing sonar or Mega Live 2 fit into my game plan. And what I mean by that is, I don't know how to really word this, but I'm just going to say I'm not a fish chaser. You know what I mean? I'm not out there chasing them down for 30 minutes trying to get one to bite. Okay. So what I mean by I made that fit into my style is I'm using it like to see isolated pieces of covers and single stumps and single rocks. Yes. And lay downs and things like that you can't visually see with your eyes. And I'm not necessarily being able to see that fish, maybe he's in the roots of the stump or whatever, but it gives me an option to throw at a piece of cover that I never normally would be able to. And I noticed myself getting a lot of bites like that. I always say it's like you're still flipping and pitching. You just can't see what you're flipping and pitching to. You know what I mean? So I've just taken that technology and let it fit into my style. Instead of fighting it, instead of getting lost, whatever, I've just used it, made it fit in. And we're just going to continue doing what we've been doing.
Power cover scoping power Mega Live 2, they've got it to where it's phenomenal too now, I think is and this is just me covering the sport, fishing the opens, but it has blown my mind how many traditional power fishermen, and maybe they are, and just not talking about it. Because, like when you get in the scope world, there's a bunch of little things that the guys don't talk about. The only one who talks about it is Drew Gill. And then you go and try to do it, and you feel even dumber after you try to do what he tells you to do. But I call power cover scoping for what you just described, I think is a drastically underutilized tool in the established professional fisherman's arsenal. And I don't know why more guys who have been doing this 15, 20, 25 years haven't adapted that to where they're going, hey, we want forward facing sonar. Like, it makes going down a bank, flipping stumps and laydowns and pitching to logs like freaking awesome. I feel like am I wrong? Is there a whole kind of group that haven't really had that connect to what you just described?
Well, I think that there probably is, but I feel like you almost get forced into, like, you gotta, like, if you can use it, if you have the ability to use it, like, the elites this year, I think, are 4 without and 4
Yep.
with, or 5 with, however that breaks down. But you almost don't have a choice at this point. You know what I mean? So, and that, like, if you talk about it, if you have an argument, it's almost like we can't have an adult conversation about forward facing sonar. You know what I mean? Because the guys that don't want it will fight you tooth and nail. The guys that do want it will fight you tooth and nail. You know what I mean? So there's no happy medium.
Don't get the clicks, Bill. Just a nice civil conversation. That doesn't get the clicks. That doesn't get the views. It's not
exactly
not outlandish enough one way or the other.
Right. So you got to be, I don't want to say you got to be careful, but it's just like I said, if it's going to be there and you got to use it, you got to embrace it. You know what I mean? Because look, I've been fighting it and it did nothing but hurt me. Just totally took me out of my game. So to just kind of work it in, like I said, using it to find cover and things like that. And it was like, that's what I did with my 360 and still use my 360 up until this, where the 360 isn't quite a live picture, where the Mega Live 2 is totally live. If there was any drawback to this whole thing that I don't like personally, and it's just my personal opinion, is that I don't like the fact that we have the ability to throw at a single fish every single cast if you want. I mean, you can literally just drive around on the trolling motor and not make a cast till you see one. If there was the one thing that I don't like about it is that ability. But as far as like being able to find the cover and things like that, because a lot of times when them fish are buried up in that kind of stuff, you don't see them. But you got a target to throw at. But like I said, if there was one thing for me that I didn't like about the deal, would be just that simple fact that you have the ability to, hell, I mean, you watch guys chase, you hear them say it all the time, I've been chasing that one for 30 minutes. I kind of just don't like that.
Fair enough. Is it hard to transition from an Elite Series tournament to an NPFL tournament back to an Elite Series tournament? To me, that would seem really difficult to like have your style and not even, because the top anglers, when you think about it, it's like you in your living room watching TV. It's like any top level athlete. You're not consciously thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing. And I think that's the biggest thing between getting in with a weekend angler and jumping in the boat with someone like you. The foot control, the electronics, the casting, the lure presentation, it's all subconscious. Those are the things, like when you watch an athlete that, how did he do that? I don't know. He just did it. But then when you're switching back and forth where part of your game is changing on a weekly basis, I've always wondered if that was a difficult transition to go from that NPFL to the Elite Series and then back to the NPFL. You're a perfect guy to ask since you did finish 12th in both Angler of the Years.
So to me, it's not a hard transition at all. The toughest transition for me is just taking the Mega Live transducer off my trolling motor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With that being said, and for me to be able to answer that the best way that I can is that I have years and years and years and years of, I don't want to say learning how to fish, okay, because that's not the right term to use. because we're all learning how to fish. I have years and years and years of learning everything that I could possibly learn about fishing. I mean, when it comes to fishing, I'm like a sponge. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about crankbaits for cold water, jigs for certain situations, just everything that you could possibly learn, seasonal patterns, water conditions, rising water, falling water, cold fronts, warm fronts, seasonal patterns, just of after years and years and years and years of that's what you do and that's what you study. And then now we learn, we're trying to learn this new technology with forward facing sonar. Like you said, you almost get in a rhythm. And it's almost of, I don't want to say been there, done that, but been there, seen that kind of thing. And you fish off your instincts, and when you fish off your instincts, I don't care where you're at in the country or if we're fishing for largemouth, smallmouth, whatever. I feel like you fish to the best of your abilities that you're going to fish on any body of water. I fish my instincts. I listen to my gut. If my gut tells me to do something, I do it. But a lot of that with a newer angler, and I always hate to go down this road, haven't had the years and years and years that a lot of the older angler have, and maybe just kind of get hung up on some type of technique. Use forward facing for sonar, for example. Okay, and I'm gonna use this for an example, Matt. I went to a boat show or a boat dealership about 3 years ago, I guess it was. This boat show was in Illinois, and Illinois is known for being not a great fishing state,
the land
a grinder
of
state, kind of like Indiana is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fishing isn't so great.
Bill froze up. He'll be back here in a second. Usually it cycles back through
for Christmas, and so I'm thinking, hey, it's right before Christmas. It's cold. Let's talk about cold water cranking and how to get bites when the water's cold, right?
Okay.
So I'm going
fair.
I'm going through my whole deal and talking about it. And finally this kid in the back raises his hand and I'm like, yeah, what's up, bud? And he's like, Mr. Lowen, why do we have to learn any of this when we have forward facing sonar? And the whole
Was it Drew
room,
Gill?
And the whole room exploded. They were like, yeah, we all want to scope. And I was like, so now, like,
you got a scope mutiny at a boat show in Illinois?
Yeah, pretty much. It broke my heart, honestly. Because I'm like trying to talk about traditional, and I don't even want to say old school because they're not old school techniques. The traditional techniques to catch a fish. And they basically said, hey, look, all we need is a minnow and a jerkbait. Now, look, this is coming from a room full of high school anglers, right?
Right.
So I had to turn this seminar into hey, you need to become a student of the game. You need to learn every technique that you possibly can, kind of a deal. And I, basically saying like, hey, let's just say forward facing sonar isn't working for you, or maybe your unit goes out while you're on the water. You still need to be able to learn or have the ability to get a bite without that technology. And I mean, I honestly, like, it sent chills up my spine. Made me just want to stand up there and cry. You know me, I'm a pretty emotional guy, and like, it was, I don't know, it was crazy. And that was 3 years ago. If I tried to maybe have that conversation now, I might get shot or beat up, or
I don't know. I think we're seeing a little bit of a come around with some of the anglers where, like, I think it's kind of I mean, in a tournament setting where your goal is to catch the best 5, it's still going to be dominant, but I'm seeing kind of a groundswell of guys who are going back and, like, chucking an OG wart on some of the Ozark stuff, and they've got 2 transducers, and they know they can go out and tickle the tops of the timber with a minnow and catch them their fish, but they want to go down the bank and run a rock crawler or wart down it, or throw a jerk bait around a little bit. I think I've seen a little bit of the younger guys who are kind of like, want to go back to the cargo shorts and Jinko jeans.
I think that with what we have going on right now and what we're seeing with some of the leagues limiting it, we touched on with the elites, 4 with it or 5 with it, 4 without.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe they may be saying, okay, if this is going to be the case, then we better learn how to do some other things as well, which I think is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we need that. And once again, I don't want to say old school. An angler needs to be that, that well-rounded whole package kind of deal, So,
Yeah.
um,
Now
yeah.
let me run this by you, Bill. And I wasn't even planning on going down this, but I value your opinion. I want your thoughts on it. So I just got back from Lake Baccarat, Pro Bass Adventures at in Mexico. And Josh has outfitted, he's got a dozen bass boats down there. I was in a Champion, I was in a Ranger, I was in a Pro Style. I kind of bounced around between BTL listeners that said, yeah, let's just go down to Mexico on Matt's recommendation. Big shout out to those guys, because I know that took a lot of balls. It was fantastic, though. But it became very apparent when I got down there that the most productive technique was long range scoping over open water, 5-6 foot visibility. You got fish of a lifetime down there, donkeys. My best 5 went 53.12. My best one day went 51. Caught every single one of those on a spinning rod that I saw 120 feet out. No apologies. I'm super proud of it. But there was, I'd say about half the group, the guys were like, yeah, we want to get up front. We want to scope. We want to use forward facing sonar. And Josh is the only lodge down there that has that. He's got the LVS 34s, active target 2s, Garmin's, the whole 9 yards. But there's also half of the guys that are like, hey, not my game. I want to drag a Texas rig, throw a pop bar, top water, deep crank, throw a burrito, a shad on the bottom, a big underspin. And they would come in and be like, yeah, I caught an 8.2 where I jumped off a 9, or I caught a 9.1 on a popper. But there were like a handful of guys who, they wanted to catch their PB. And they had live scope, but they hadn't been scoping for the week. So I started jumping around in different boats and getting on the front deck with guys. And, I jump in the boat with Kevin, and he's from Canada, and he's got forward facing sonar up there, but he's not a knock him out with the cinder block at 100 feet guy. You know what I'm saying? And he gets up front and he's like, all right, let's learn this stuff. And, we get it dialed in, and we get it where I'm like, there's your PB. That's your PB. Would not have been able to see it. Wouldn't have been able to find it. There's no way would have even known it was there. It was in the freaking abyss. Dude hits it. We watch the tail waggle, 9 even, blows his personal best out of the water. We're high-fiving. We're screaming in the boat. We're hugging each other. We get the pictures. Core memory of a lifetime, 50 plus years of fishing. And we were able to make it happen for him. Simultaneously, his buddy is about a quarter mile away, and we hear them. He's with my buddy Juice. We hear them screaming, oh my God, thank you so much. Oh, and then you hear 10-pounder, 10-pounder. I mean, it's just chaos over there. And there's part of me that's going, okay, yeah, none of those fish would have happened without forward facing sonar. Both of those guys were learning it, but it allowed them to have these absolute core memories that they've been chasing for 50 years that they'll always remember. And just like a topwater explosion or the blow up, he's like, dude, when I saw that fish, my heart just stopped. To me, that, that's the same. That's the core memory. And if the goal is to create lifelong lasting experiences and stuff like that, I think that's freaking awesome. Are you kind of on the same page, or what are your thoughts on something like that? Because that was badass stuff that never would have happened without forward facing sonar. And I freely admit it. And I have no shame to say that my 11, 11, 11, 1, 10, 9, 10, 4, and 10, 1, I knew I had a good chance at catching them before they even knew I was there.
I've always said this because it's true. Forward-facing sonar is the coolest technology we've ever seen, right? Mm-hmm. But what that has done now is, it's just a 10-pounder, right? It has set the bar now where that 10-pounder needs to be a 12-pounder, right?
Absolutely, because we had 9 over 10, and then the 11-11. I was like, the 10s were like, oh, it's a 10-8.
Right, exactly. So I mean, the bar back in the day was a 10-pounder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
but isn't that good if we're catching more 10-pounders, Bill? I mean, we went down to Mexico in our group. We had 5 guys catch a double digit. Like, who the hell wouldn't want that?
Right. I get it. Like, I mean, like in my 20 years on the elites or my 40 years of bass fishing, I've caught like 3 10-pounders. And one that was right at almost 14 pounds on the California Delta.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, what we've done now is we've set the bar way higher, right? Yeah, it's great. Catch all the 10-pounders you want. And I can I'm a big hunter, you know that, right? Yep. So I look at it as like whitetail deer, right? Back in the day, like the 150-inch whitetail was like the gold standard, right?
Yep.
Now with all the technology we have with cell cameras and things like that, now that deer is up to 170, 180 inches. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants a 200-inch whitetail, right? So yeah, look, hey, whatever makes you happy, whatever floats your boat, so be it. We're starting to set the bar way too high. I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like almost it kind of like, mm-hmm. I don't know, kind of takes away from some of the like excitement of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I feel you. I was just asking you a question.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Here's something that I do want to, this, I'll say it, this chaps my ass. Spotlighting for deer. Live scoping and forward-facing sonar, and you're a hunter, I want you to jump in on this. It's not like spotlighting for deer. It is like the cameras. It is like the HD cameras and that stuff for the deer. It's not spotlighting at freaking night for them. That is the worst. I about said a word I never said on BTL before. That is the worst comparison that I have ever heard.
See it's how you're getting all worked up and excited about this?
No, I'm not even upset about anything. I hate that Chase Anderson used that comparison. It bugged me. On the show, you go back, listen to it. It is like the cameras. Now I sit around and my buddies are going, oh, we got one there. We got one there. They're not going out and it's not spotlighting. It's that the equivalent would be the HD cameras that these guys all see. It's more like the freaking trail cams and the cam picks than it is the spotlighting, because that's how you're picking out your deer. You're knowing where you sit. I don't hunt, but you knowing where you sit, you knowing what you're working on, you're knowing what you're passing, you knowing what you're waiting on. Before, I think 150-inch deer was because you didn't know there was a 171, there was a freaking giant out there, and you're like, damn, that's a nice deer. I mean, that sucker's in the freezer.
So what are you asking me?
Do you think it's more like the hunting scenario is with the cameras or spotlighting?
Okay,
in the comparison to the scope, because everyone wants to say it's spotlighting.
So obviously it's different, right? And I made the comment earlier in the show that I don't like that we have the ability to throw at a fish every cast if we wanted, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what if we had a piece of technology that we could scan the woods and show us right where the deer is? Okay.
I mean, that's like infrared stuff.
Okay. So we just creep over there at that point and be like, oh, there he is behind the bush, and we shoot him. Okay. Now we got guns that'll shoot 1,000 yards, right? Mm-hmm. So if we had a piece of technology that would show you that, it would be equivalent to forward-facing sonar. Okay. Hence the example that guys are using is that it's like spotlighting a deer, because you can take a spotlight and shine it around till you see his eyes or see the deer, whatever, and hold it on him, and then they can shoot it, right? So that's where we're getting that comparison of spotlighting a deer or forward-facing sonar, okay? It gives you the ability to find that deer and shoot him under a spotlight, which is totally illegal. So that's where you're getting that comparison at. And I know you say you hate that guys are saying that, but if you really, really stop and think about it, we're shining a beam on a fish that gives you the ability to cast at him. Yeah, you still got to get him to bite, okay? In theory, or no different than shining a spotlight on a deer. So that's where the guys are getting that.
I understand that.
Okay.
Like I said, I just asked for opinions. All right, we're done talking about forward-facing sonar.
Get rid of it.
We have a bunch. I didn't say that. I just said we're done talking about it.
No, I didn't mean get rid of it. I mean get rid of it off the show.
Off the show, yes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to reset.
This is your fault. I didn't do it.
No, I know, and we just slid into it. But I feel like, I mean, like on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as like just a healthy, normal discussion about it, I feel like that was a fairly well executed. I had a little bit of a rant in there. You got your point across. I see where you're coming from. I mean, I didn't think that was a bad segment on it. Did you?
No, it was great. It's awesome. But I you got all worked up about it. Like, just like
I got all worked up about the
spotlight. We can't have an adult
thing.
Conversation about it.
No, that was a totally adult conversation. I got all worked up about a bunch of stuff yesterday too. I thought it was a very adult conversation, but you know, there's a difference between worked up and passionate. I'm passionate about the sport. I'm passionate about the history of the sport, keeping the traditions while also moving forward into the future to provide a platform for the most number of people. The guys, you don't want to kick out the guys who have built a legacy in it, and you don't want to punish the guys who are using the tools at their disposal. I guess that's it. There's no right answer, and that's why people argue and talk about it. That's, you know, what makes it kind of a hot button topic. So, all right, Bill Lowen on a Wednesday, December 17th. We'll be back with more right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Before there were hashtags, there were handshakes and shared stories. They gave us confidence to make our first cast, to chase our dreams. They taught us to fish, and in the process, taught us about life. They taught us that success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about lifting others up. The future isn't just about selling tackle. It's about 3 simple words. Let's go fishing. Here's to the original influencers.
When I'm in a tournament, conditions are constantly changing and every second matters. With the Deep Dive app, I can instantly pull up all the current lake conditions all in one spot. So no more looking at weird government websites. In just one quick glance, I have water clarity, water level, wave forecast. It's all right there in the Deep Dive app. Download the Deep Dive app and get all the tools you need to put together an awesome tournament.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Wednesday with Bill Lowen, and let's talk international bassing. At the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame banquet earlier this year, I talked with Charlie Evans and a number of different guys. Obviously, the Black Bass World Championships headed next year to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Some really cool stuff there. But then I was fortunate enough to be a part of that Pan Am Games down in Mexico, and to not even understand the level of pride and time that a lot of other countries put in to be a part of that. Was able to go to Japan last year and kind of see their bass fishing culture and all that. Tackle, you were part of a group that went to China recently and got to kind of get immersed in that bass fishing culture. I know you were saying beforehand that you had been on with Terry Brown. He's an Illinois guy, Terry Brown, Wired to Fish. Yep. I've known Terry Brown for a number. I mean, I've known Terry Brown since I was 13 years old, Bill Lowen. I just turned 41 last year. Talked a little bit about it, but you want to dive into the China trip and what that's like? Because I don't think a lot of people, when they think of hardcore bass fishing, I think international, you get the Spain, you get the South Africa, you get the Mexico, and the Canada and Japan. What is it like in China? There's a lot of people there.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of people there. And, you know, it was, I got the opportunity to go to China with the guys from ARC Rods and Reels, and myself, Randall Tharp, and Brandon Cobb. We all went over there. And I had never been, that was my first time being out of the country. Or
Bad day to
except
be
for
bad day to be a shallow bass with you three in the neighborhood.
well, that was like I'd never been out of the country except for crossing the border, going into Mexico to fish on Falcon or Amistad or something like that.
You never been to Canada?
Well, in Canada, I mean,
Okay.
in the boat, never
Well,
on
you
land.
never like gone through where they're
No,
like, oh,
not
do
at
you have
all.
any? You don't have
No,
any maple syrup with you, do you? Eh?
no, not at all.
Okay.
So I had no idea what I was
Oh
getting
wow,
into.
you were in for it then.
Yeah, and I guess what I didn't realize until I got there was how popular bass fishing has become in China. I guess because you never hear anybody talk about it or anything like that. But I guess over the last 5, 6 years, it has really exploded. And we went over there and we did. I keep calling it basically a fishing tour because I feel like that's what we did. We flew into Shanghai, and then I'm going to get all these cities wrong. I think we went to a little town or city called Lihan or something like that. But anyway, we went to like I'm going to call it a lake, or I guess I'd call it a lake. Basically, the lake was, I'm just going to throw some numbers out here. Let's say it was 50 acres.
Okay.
And
So it's a large pond.
yeah, basically. So the one side of the lake had little like houses kind of on it that hung out over the water. That's where we stayed, like hotel rooms.
Okay.
But what this place was a place that anglers could come fish. They could either fish from the shore or they could rent a boat and fish out of a boat with a trolling motor on it.
Okay.
The lake, I'd say if you caught a 3-pounder out of the lake would be a big one. Because obviously a largemouth bass is not, a native fish in China. So there was a lot of those pound, pound and 3/4 size fish in the lake, right? And we had our first event was there. The fans got to come. It was like a meet and greet seminar. And it was really cool to see how excited people were to bass fish, right? It was almost, and I hate to say it like this, but it was almost like a bunch of excited little kids getting to go fishing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had a little tournament kind of deal, and we basically had a blast off from from fishing off the bank, and guys were literally running as fast as they could to get to their fishing spot, right? But what was really cool for me was that it's all about finesse over there, right? It's all about 4-pound lines and 2 and 3 inch size stick baits and things like that. Little tiny frogs, just a lot of finesse type stuff. And you know me, I mean, I took my
That is not
seven,
you.
I took my 7'6" flipping rod, 22-pound Tatsu fluorocarbon, a high speed reel, and I took a white swim jig, my 1/4 ounce, my fluffy. You call it a fluffy
I
swim jig,
know.
right?
That was like 8 years ago, and it's you apparently is still you still hold a grudge against me for that.
And I put a pearl white Z Crawl Junior on there, right?
Yeah.
And literally, it's like the fish had never seen that thing before, right? And why I'm talking about this is because I had anglers on the shore following me, right? Like paparazzi, basically. I actually had one guy tell me that he would follow me all over the lake because my swim jig technique was beautiful, right? I've never had anybody tell me that.
Yeah.
But to go to and I always say a bass is a bass wherever you go in the country. To go all the way to the other side of the world and take that technique and be able to catch them was really cool because they're all about finesse, right?
So they're
Um,
bringing the fish out like I know in Japan there's bass fish is popular, but it's also considered an invasive species in some areas. In China, it sounds like, and I've watched some stuff on YouTube, but they're like curating lakes and then intentionally bringing largemouth bass over into them to create fisheries and opportunities for their anglers.
yeah, I'm not quite 100% sure how all that works. I know there is some lakes that have a population of bass in them, but I would have to assume that the kind of the like where we were at for that deal
Mm-hmm.
are definitely stopped.
And you
Um,
said that was over by Shanghai.
I think Shanghai, Langhai, something like that. And then we left from there and went to another lake that was basically in the mountains. And literally there was a lake in the mountains. We walk over the hill and there's two fully rigged bass boats, two fiberglass boats, two fully rigged fiberglass boats, and about 6 or 7
They have
fully
scope
rigged.
on them, Bill?
What's that?
They have scope on them, Bill?
I'm going to get there.
Okay.
So, and there were 6 or 7 aluminum rigged boats, right?
Okay.
Fully loaded out. The glass boats had every hummingbird electronic on it you could think of, the biggest screens, the biggest everything, right? And one of the boats' electronics wouldn't work, but the other one would. And that's the boat that Brandon Cobb was in, right? And he ran all over that mountain lake, and like every dot he'd throw out, he'd catch, right? Well, then his electronics quit working. He couldn't catch anything after that.
Really?
Nah, so, but we got to run around that lake where they're traditionally fishing 4-6 pound line, scoping, drop shotting, Nico rigging, things like that. And
how big was this lake?
It was, it was big.
Natural lake?
What's that?
Natural lake? Like it wasn't
absolutely.
like what's it
natural.
like? Compare it to something remotely similar in the United States.
So if I had to compare it to something, I would compare it to like a Falcon or an Amistad kind of deal.
Oh, okay.
Amistad probably more than Falcon because it had a lot of bluffy type walls on it.
Okay, clear water.
Clear water, buck brushy type deals.
Okay.
Things like that. And it was really big. You could run 70-mile-an-hour on it if you wanted. But once again, you had me, Tharp, and Cobb all on a boat together.
Yeah, you're
fishing.
gonna try to find a way to boat flip them.
Well, they turned us loose, one afternoon for 2 or 3 hours, and it was buzz baiting, flipping, swim jigging, and we had a ball. We didn't catch any giants. 3 or 4 pounder would be, I think, a big one.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a tremendous amount of fun. And like I said, what was cool to be able to take our power fishing techniques to a traditionally known
I just lost audio. I don't know where the audio went, Bill. Hold on. I'm going to remove you and bring you back. I got no audio. We're going to take a break. Oh, you're back.
Okay.
That was weird.
Yeah. So
just the last 20 seconds. Just recap that.
So like I said, it was fun to be able to go to a place and take our power fishing techniques to a finesse style place and be able to catch them and kind of show maybe some of the fans over there what they've been watching us do over here, and for them to be able to see that firsthand. I think was really cool.
So they'd never seen a buzzbait before. So
well, no, I don't want to say they've seen that stuff. But the lakes they fish get so much pressure.
Really? So there is a lot of pressure on them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you could just imagine like the most crowded place you've ever been in the country.
Gunnersville by far.
And well, I don't know about. I'm not talking about on the water. I'm just talking about in general. People-wise.
Yeah.
Take the most crowded place you've ever been in, times that by 3. Is what it's like there everywhere. But the bass fishing thing, they just the lakes get a lot of pressure because I think that there ain't 5 lakes within a hour drive like Alabama where you can go fishing. You know what I mean?
So it's massive. It's a massive country, but it's not like you just drive and you're like, oh, there's a lake, there's a lake, there's a lake.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're a bass fisherman in China, you know the only lakes that have them in them, and that's where you're going. And that's where everybody goes.
And do they watch Bass Live and have all the lures and watch the YouTube channels and all that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wes Logan was supposed to go with us. And he's got his own signature series line of rods from Arc. And there was fans over there that literally they just wanted to come and meet Wes Logan because they used his rods. Same with Randall Tharp, and Cobb is for all that. They all 3 got their own signature series rods. And
it was good to see the Bill Lowe and Fluffy Swib jig. They had to be lined up for that, Bill.
Yeah, you never know,
Huh. What vegetation wise is there like weird? I would picture the vegetation to be like some weird, you always hear like I don't know, like giant lilies and stuff, or do they have hydrilla and reeds and cattails and stuff?
We didn't see a lot of that. They did have a giant, I don't know, like you said, a giant lily, but it was different than kind of what I've seen here in the States. Is this one grew real high out of the water, 2-3 foot above the water, and then it had the pad. It was almost like the water got drawn down out of the pads, but they
So
were
you
still standing
could you
straight up.
skip underneath the pads then?
No, it was really too shallow in that
I
type of
got you.
stuff. Most of the bites and stuff that we were fishing there were hard rock lines and things like that with overhanging brush, and maybe a tree fell in the water or something like that. But wasn't a lot of stumps, wasn't a lot of things like that. Like I said, you'd almost compare it to like a Lake Falcon kind of deal.
Road wise, like can guys keep a boat at their house and then like hook up their bass boat and tow it to the lakes, or are these things like I picture it like, I mean, are they big enough to hook up an 18-footer and roll down the road and dump her in, or are they like kept at the lake?
So from what I gathered, like it's illegal to tow a boat through any type of city in China, right? Or any of the outskirts or whatever. The only place you can tow that is like basically in the country. Because the traffic and things are so like, heck, I wouldn't even want to drive over there, Like if we couldn't walk, I didn't want to go.
Yeah, it was nuts in Japan. I was like, I'm glad that we have people who know what's going on, and we're just the small children that they're literally like, here, hold our hands as we walk through Tokyo so you don't get lost.
Yeah.
Did you do any tackle stuff over there? Do they have tackle stores, or is there any?
So we only got
stuff?
We only got to stop at one tackle store just because when we were traveling, you were either in a car for 3 hours, you were on a high-speed bullet train that went 230 mile an hour or something, or we were on another flight. I think we flew 2 or 3 times while we were actually in China.
Oh, wow.
So we were literally running all over the place, basically. So we didn't have time to stop, but we did stop at one that we just accidentally drove by on the way going somewhere else. And we got to walk in there and look at some of their tackle and things like that. It was cool to see a whole shelf or wall full of cigar fishing line. But yeah, it was definitely a cool trip. And I would have to venture to say that it may be a trip that's going to continue on because of how popular bass fishing has become over there.
That'd be cool. Yeah. And then I'm assuming Ark had it like set up the meet and greets with you guys and all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had interpreters and all that good stuff. But yeah, it was. I was really nervous about going, but after being there and having the experience, it was way more than I ever dreamed it would be.
What was the average age of the bass angler, would you say? Are we talking young kids, or are we talking all over the map?
All over the map, pretty much. Really? But what I was really caught my eye was the amount of female anglers that were there. There was a tremendous amount. I don't want to say half, but probably a quarter women in the groups.
It's interesting you mentioned a lot of bank fishing because obviously that's big in Japan. There's actually the USA Bass has a bank division, USA Angling has a bank division, not just for bass with it. But when it comes to highlighting bank angling, I think it's weird that maybe it's just because we have so much access to vessels, but we've seen the kayak take off. But to me, the bank angling is very underappreciated, underutilized in the United States. You'll see a little bit on some of those West Coast lakes where the guy's on the bank throwing a big swim bait on some of those that you can only have like 5 or 6 paddle boats on. But as a whole, so many other countries, like you can look at Japan, they do whole TV shows of guys who are catching bass from the bank. And you talked about the bank fishing there. It's weird how little press publicity, I guess, prestige, notoriety we get for bank angling in the United States when there's more opportunity to do it here than anywhere else in the world.
Well, like you said, I think we don't talk about that because we just all take it for granted that we can hook the boat up and go to a Lake Gunnersville or a, Wheeler or Wilson or just, within an hour drive of your house, you got endless options. And I think that's why we don't talk about that much, because we just take it for granted. Where over there, that's what they have. And they gear their tackle to that. I mean, there's whole tackle lines that are, backpacks and 3 and 4 piece rods and things like that are designed to walk the shores, and little tiny short rods and things like that for skipping under overhangs and things like that. Like I said, just things that we take for granted. They fish what they have, and they gear their tackle to do that.
Did you pick up anything cool?
No, not really. I picked up some new things that we got coming from Arc, and things like that. So
are they big on the dice and the koike and the crazy stuff over there too?
Yeah, just
really.
They got
so that's
stuff
big over there too.
They fish with stuff over there that you and I would not even probably tie on.
You didn't pick up anything? Come on, just give us one. Yeah, I know
No,
you
not
did.
at
I
all.
could tell. I could tell you did. You got some secret.
I just wanted my fluffy swim jig. That's all.
Have you messed with this thing yet?
No.
Dude, apparently that's like the next minnow.
Yeah, I bet it is.
It's very interesting to me.
When they build me one, I can put a 5/0 flipping hook in it. Then we might tie it on.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Right.
I wouldn't put it past him. What else you got going on? Anything you want to make sure you get in here before I let you go, Bill?
No, I mean, it's just that time of the year where we're crammed trying to get everything ready. We started early this year, the first week of February. So we're right in the middle of jerseys and boat wraps and getting boats rigged. And it's the craziest time of the year. I always say I love it and I hate it.
Still in aluminum in 26?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Why would you not?
You've been with Express for a while now.
Yeah, this will be, I think I'm going on my 9th year, something like that.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yep. Got it's just like I said, why would you not run an aluminum boat?
I hear you. I don't think you're selling many winged flukes. Just
Me?
saying, I don't think that's your top seller for Bill Lowen.
If I tell you how good the winged fluke is on a chatterbait,
I never even thought about that, Bill.
Exactly. So don't tell anybody about that. But you might ought to try it.
I think I might try that
for Christmas. I wouldn't. I mean, if I was you, I wouldn't try it. But I'm just saying.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for jumping on the time, and always a good time. You're one of the OGs with Bookend. You said you got the 2 blue trophies now. Next is it going to be your 12th and even dozen cracks at a Bassmaster Classic Championship coming up here?
I lost you there for a second.
Oh, yeah, you back? Is this you're going to get your 12th crack at a classic coming up here at in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Someone
you want to hear the dream real quick I had?
Yeah. Hit us with the dream, Bill.
So I had a dream earlier before the season started this year that, I've missed the classics we've had in Knoxville, right?
Yeah.
So I had a dream that I was going to win a blue trophy in 2025, which happened, right? And then the rest of that dream was I was going to qualify for the classic in Knoxville, which we did that. And that I was going to win the Bassmaster Classic in Knoxville. And then I was going to retire. So, I don't know if that dream will come true. Hopefully the winning the classic part comes true. But that whole retiring thing, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet or not.
I like that. We'll end it on that. Thanks for jumping on BTL, Bill.
All right, bud. Have a good one. Thank you. Have a good Christmas.
All right. So I think your swim jig is fantastic, for the record. We haven't ever cleared the air on that. I don't think it's fluffy. At the time, I was not a swim jig expert. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I was an intern with Mark Jeffries, and I didn't realize that a light swim jig is what a lot of the big time pros use because it allowed them to keep it in the strike zone more and to do more with it. I was just a half ounce, cast it out and reel it in like a bulldog swim jig guy. And your swim jig is perfect and not fluffy.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
See ya.
See you, bud. Bye.
All right. The one and only Bill Lowen. We will take a final break of the show when we come back, more on what we have kind of going on over the holiday season. It's BTL on a Wednesday. We'll talk to everyone here in about 2.5 minutes.
As a professional angler, there's only one thing that connects you to your paycheck. Probably the most crucial part to tournament bass fishing. I use Sunline because they have a line for every application. Shooter, FX2, All Might, super light line, big stuff, big sticks. Sunline has you covered.
Sharp as can be. Super strong, super durable.
Really good penetration.
Thinner and stronger.
Catch fish after fish.
I want to make sure that I'm using the best stuff possible.
World's finest hook.
World's finest hook.
Gamakatsu. World's finest hook.
Hey guys, Brian Schmidt here with Spro. I'm going to talk to you about the confidence I have in the equipment I use. You know, I have a charter boat business back home in Maryland. We fish for saltwater fish, and I also fish the Bassmasters Elite Series. So I keep my lights on by fishing. I have to have a lot of confidence in the equipment I use. Spro has me covered from head to toe, saltwater, freshwater, everything in between. A lot of high-end quality product. Spro has you covered.
I fish in some of the worst elements across the country. Spring, that's a giant, dude. Summer, oh my gosh. Hi, look at that thing. Winter, it's so cold. And fall, got a big one, that's awesome. Being comfortable and staying dry is the only option. AFCO, any fish, any water.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery, unparalleled weight savings, keeping you on the water whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
All right, welcome back as we wrap things up here. BTL on a Wednesday. Day 4 with Uncle Frank. Tomorrow I actually got in the mail. This was from his last custom color drop. I don't buy a lot of those things. I'm not going to open either of those. These will not get fish. I got 577 of 600, 552 of 600. Then I'm also doing a show tomorrow afternoon with Jeremy Lawyer. One of the new things last year for the Bassmaster Opens that we had to do is we had to take a boater safety course, get a boater safety certificate. It's pretty in depth, takes 5-6 hours. Kind of have to know your stuff, take a quiz at the end of it. Basically, anybody fishing open passed one. So you can look at the open field and realize that it doesn't take a genius to get your boater safety certificate, but you do have to be able to pay attention. Now, that is drastically different from a captain's license, which I know depending on whether you want to guide in some states, what you want to do, how you have to do it, what you're able to do legally. Captain's license is drastically different. You're talking charter, plotting, ship stuff, compass navigation, all sorts of stuff to really ensure that if you have someone else's life in your hands, you know how to get them back if your electronics go out or whatever. A lot of ocean stuff, a lot of big water, Great Lake stuff, not relatable to bass fishing. But Jeremy Lawyer, Mike McClellan, much you guys went through that captain's class. Want to get Jeremy on, talk about that. We'll probably dive into a little bit of crappie fishing as well. I know he's a big cold water guy. I see some questions on that. Yes, we're working on new CTL content that is going to go all the way through February, starting in the new year on a weekly basis. We have the 4 out here, and I'm working on some new content on that for CTL. But that's what we have for the rest of the week. Frank tomorrow, and then on the 22nd, Jeremy Lawyer, and then we'll be off the rest of that week, that entire week of Christmas, and then working on some pretty new exciting stuff with some usual suspects, some BTL regulars, some passion projects like that'll kind of take you outside of the day-to-day grind of professional bass fishing, which BTL will still cover on a daily basis, but just some more. We'll just leave it at that. Some more stories, some more, and maybe true, maybe not true, but everyone loves a good fish story. We'll leave it at that. So thanks to Bill Lowen. Hope everybody, if you're traveling for the holiday season, a safe and happy time. We will talk to everybody tomorrow with the man, Frank Scalish. Until then, we'll talk to everyone later. See ya.